when we're really looking at research and trying to identify, well, what did they leave out? We're assuming that we're smart enough to know what should have been in it,
Totally.
right? So it's like, I'm not going to say none of us. I'll speak for myself. I'm not smart enough to know to open up a paper and actually read through the methodology, read through the way that they what the hypothesis was, and how they carried it out and how they got to that conclusion. I'm not smart enough to open that up and know off the bat, well, you should have done this. You should have set it up in this way and that way. So that's where I kind of go back to that idea, like, yeah, I think there is some malicious science, but I think a lot of science isn't malicious. People just didn't know what they didn't know, so they just did it wrong, right? And then someone comes a few years later and they do it better. Not right, but they do it better. So we draw better conclusions, and then better conclusions, and then better conclusions. So we can't expect everyone to know exactly what's going to make this thing absolutely pristine and perfect, right? So science is a tool, right? Like we can't look at science as absolute truth, because it's not, right? There's humans that are performing it, and just kind of what we walk through, where it's like there's a series of or a number of humans that are like, this is what our hypothesis was. How do they get to that hypothesis? They get through that hypothesis through their own brains. They get it through their own philosophy. They land there, right? So that's where science starts. So what if the way that they got there was flawed? Does it make everything that they do after flawed? I would probably say yes, right? So we can't look at science as like absolute truth either, but we can use science to come to, like, this is probably true beyond a reasonable doubt, because we had 15 people come to the exact same conclusion, and they all use different methods to come to that conclusion. So yeah, I think too many people look at science as just like, nope, can't be wrong. It's absolute. There's nothing can refute this. This study says that. It's like, well, maybe, but maybe not as well.
It doesn't always account for individual differences either.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that obviously we put such a high value on as individual design coaches. But oftentimes, you in the results, you see the averages,
Mm-hmm.
what happened for most people, but not what happened for these people that had a really adverse reaction, or the one or two people who had a really positive reaction.
Yeah.
And why did they have an adverse reaction? Why did they have a positive reaction? Is there something a little bit different
Mm-hmm.
about those people compared to the averages in the middle that actually does make this thing really interesting or really not interesting for these two distinct populations? So just understanding that we're all individuals, we're all different, and science can't always account for that either.
That is true. We have billions of cells in our body, and each one of our cells contains about 10,000 encyclopedias worth of information inside of them, right? So you look at that and you're like, oh my gosh, a person is extremely complex. How do we come to a conclusion for all persons? Good luck.
I know. And we often look at things on a population level, right?
Mm-hmm.
With like epidemiological work. And yes, there can be some great like ideas that are taken away from that, but correlation versus causation, it's pretty good at correlation, not always great at causation. It's very hard to look at all the different variables and risk factors when you're looking at something on a population level like that. And then it's also subject to like the healthy user bias, right? Where the resveratrol studies and like all studies around alcohol are like such an interesting example of that. And there's so much here to unpack. I'm like not sure exactly where to start, because then you've also got the way that the media loves to latch on to like these like specific little nuggets and specific little things. So you hear that resveratrol's healthy for you. You should drink more red wine. You read that and then you actually like dig into it, and then there's actually no real benefit there. So there's the way the media likes to skew information, and then there's also the issue where there's this potential healthy user bias that's making something seem like it's good when it's not. So like low to moderate drinking is a great example, right? On face value, if you look at like all of the research, it looks like if you drink a small amount of alcohol, or you're that like light to moderate drinker, you're actually healthier than people who drink no alcohol at all, or people who are heavy drinkers. But then you start to think about like, what is the reason that someone might be like a light to moderate drinker versus a zero drinker? And are there health issues or social issues or other issues that might be preventing someone from having any drinks throughout the week? Whereas if someone's, having 1 or 2 or 3 drinks spread out the week, they're probably a healthy drinker. They're probably aware that moderation is a good thing. And how are they carrying that over to the rest
That's
of
where
their
logic
lives?
really comes into play, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because if you think about that logically, how would you think about that? I think if you and I were sitting here and I think we may have had a conversation on if alcohol is healthy. But
We
anyway,
have. Hmm.
if we were doing that again, I think the first question that we would ask ourselves is, okay, what is the result of putting alcohol into your body? Like that's where we would start, right? Like we wouldn't start at like, well, evidence shows that this series of people that drink 2 drinks per week and they do that intentionally, they're actually healthier than the person that has 0 drinks per week. It's like, yeah, to your point, why are they only having 2? It's probably because they're living a pretty healthy life and they're limiting themselves to 2 intentionally. But if we were to look at, okay, what happens when we put alcohol into our body? I think you and I would come to a conclusion like nothing healthy happens when you do that. So what should we do? What should the recommendation be? Drink as little as possible, right? It's like, is drinking 1 better than 0? No, right? Like no, that's logical, right? So yeah, I mean we can go on and on with that one, but that's a really good point.
Yeah, bad research is also, it sticks around like a bad smell
Hmm.
too. And I think the cholesterol in the egg example is such a good example of this idea that again got a lot of media attention. We shouldn't eat a huge amount of dietary cholesterol. It's going to raise your cholesterol levels in your blood, and it's going to have really negative health effects for
Yep.
you. And then decades unfolded and other research came out to refute that link between dietary cholesterol and the cholesterol that's in our bodies.
Let me ask you a question on that.
Yes.
Let's not hit the why did that research come out and why did that research spread so quickly? Because that's a different conversation. Instead, let's hit why do you think people cling on to those ideas? Like, why do
Yeah.
people cling on? So, the population hears don't eat egg yolks because it increases your cholesterol. Why do you think people want to hear that
Because
stuff?
it's an easy answer. All I have to do is stop eating eggs and I'm going to be healthy and fine.
Exactly, right? I mean, that's we all want that, right? Like we all want a list that we can follow. We don't want principles. We want absolutes, right? Those are two different things, right? Absolutes versus principles. Um, Everyone wants absolutes. 12 rules, right? Jordan Peterson's book.
Yes.
I think people clung on to that. He's a bright dude, right? Like has some really good principles inside of there. But people clung on to that because they're like, this is all I have to do. There's these 12 rules, and these are all I have to follow, and I'll be such a better person, right? So that stuff, the absolutes really sell, right? Like people cling on to that because people are looking for answers. And I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to call people lazy or anything like that, but I don't think people want to hear principles and figure it out for themselves. People want absolutes, and they just want to say, "That's what I need to do. That's what I not need to. That I need to not do that." So on and so forth. So I think when people hear things like that, that's why they cling on to it and they stay connected to it. We can go into like the USDA food pyramid and the SAD diet and all that stuff, but I think that was actually not from an organization standpoint, but from a population standpoint. That's why I think people really fell in line there because it was just like an answer.
Totally.